Jackson with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keaton Podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Brent Jackson.
Today is our State of the Market episode. It is pretty much summertime. We've had an interesting spring market. We brought our illustrious, experienced guests on the show. We've got Rob Sanders from the Rob and Brent team over at Sotheby's, where we all work, and Lauren Davis, who's crushing it in 2024 because apparently everyone and their cousin and their cousin's cousin, they all want to live in Bethesda right now, which is...
Yes, why not?
Why not?
Why not?
It's the sweet spot.
It's a sweet spot. So, yeah, we're going to talk about the state of the market, just check in on how everyone's doing, what they think about everything.
And the elephant in the room as well.
Yeah, let's go right to elephant in the room. But let's not spend too much time on that because it's like, it's getting... Like, we really, again, once we don't know what's going to happen.
Well, you don't know, but everyone's got a prediction, and everyone's prediction is sure to go wrong.
Right. Obviously, we're talking about the NAR case, the settlement, and the changes in regulations on how compensation is going to be offered or not offered in the MLS. And I received a notification from our local MLS recently that, there's going to be new fields for when we put our data entry in, and then those data fields will then go away at some point. We don't know when. I'm just going to go right to Lauren because I'm looking right at you.
Oh.
What do you think? Like, what do you really think about this?
I think we're already seeing change.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, there's agents in my market, which is your market too, that have already put out zero to a buyer's agent. So they are testing that. You wouldn't be surprised to know who the first agent is who offered zero. They will remain unnamed, but it was not shocking that that person would be the one to come out at zero first.
Right.
Or I'm also seeing a change in compensation. So let's say the seller had been offering 2.5% or 2.75 or 3. Now all of a sudden I'm going back to show something for a second or third time, and the compensation has been adjusted to 2. So we're seeing some changes. We're seeing people test it out, I think, because I think, like you're saying, agents don't know what the future holds. And so maybe they're sort of trying this out or being willing to have a discussion with the seller to say, we can reduce it. I'm not reducing my side, which I don't know if they are or are not. I'm just guessing. I'm not changing my compensation, but let's try this and see if the traffic stops. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be a seller being a guinea pig in that situation, but I think I'm seeing it in our market a bit.
So you're seeing it was this a listing in Montgomery County or in DC?
So listing in Montgomery County, new construction, offering a 0%. Listing condo in DC, going back for a third showing, and compensation had been changed. So
the one that's 0% in Montgomery County, where's the status of that now? Is it under contract?
No, I mean these are these are big numbers that they're looking for. So I don't know. I mean the agent sells a lot of their own business, so I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what the philosophy is. Yeah. But I think so. What we're seeing is some people trying it and testing it out. I don't necessarily have a prediction for the future. I'm just staying the course. I'm not planning on changing anything in my business. Of course, we have to abide by new rules and how we communicate that.
Yeah.
But you know what? We've all sold listings off market. It's somewhat similar. I'd have to call Rob. Rob has something. I say, Rob, I really want to show that house you have that's off market. What's the compensation? It's very similar. It's another step. But I think that leads me to my next point. I think we're going to see things sell off market more.
Yeah, I hear that. Rob, what do you think about all this? Have you seen some changes in the way compensation's offered on the buyer side?
So we, the other day, we just sold a property, and I didn't even pay attention when I went up there to show it. The client had called and said, hey, look, I found my dream home in Darnestown or Germantown. It fluctuates per day when you look at the address. One day it's Germantown, the next day they call it Darnestown.
That's marketing.
It's marketing, thank you. And I saw 2%. And so anyway, I was with the team and I complained. I go, hey, I guarantee if that Alta comes over and it shows 2% to TTR and 3%, I'm going to flip. And so I call the agent ahead of time, and the agent goes, "Oh, no, it's 2 and 2." And I go, "Wow, I commend you. I appreciate you doing that." She goes, "Well, yeah, it's 2 because she knows what's coming up in the pipeline, and she wanted to go ahead and make sure that you got a lower part for the buyer. She wants to be, she's 85 years old, and her kids told her what to do." I said, "Oh, great. Well, what happened to you on the 2?" And she goes, "She thought it was a good idea to lower the list side too." I go, "Well, good for her. Like 4%. Okay, great."
But so, what was this? Was it changed somewhere during the process? Or
No, it was
Always
originally
always
offered.
originally. Right?
Got it.
So then I go back, and we're always looking every day at our private exclusives that come up from TTR, and I'm like looking at like 20 of them, and we start our big thing now in the team is we go and write, do 2.5, 2.5, 2, and I go, "Ooh, a few 2s," and I go, "Wow." And then I made a big deal about it, and I actually, me, I forwarded to the broker. I go, "Wow, I can't believe that we have 2 already in a private, and we're not even in July or August yet." And his response back, and the team that did it is a TTR team in Virginia. They'll remain nameless, and the broker will remain nameless. And the broker put, "Just be thankful you're getting 2."
Ooh.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ooh.
How about that?
So I got a question for all of you guys. Taking your agent hat off and putting the seller hat on, like what would you do as a seller, knowing that the commission is blind out in the marketplace? Like, why would you be willing to give 3% versus I'll pay a commission, but let the buyer agent ask for the commission?
I mean, personally, having done this for so long, I'm clearly I'm a little jaded. I believe that our profession has value, and I know we add value to these transactions. These transactions are complicated for people, and they're not complicated in the sense of like filling out paperwork or those kinds of aspects. But when you're dealing with negotiations in a lot of cases, I mean, how many times have you found that like people can barely tell you what it is that they're looking for or what they want to you, much less tell the other party what they really are looking for? So to me, if I was a seller, I would still be totally aware of the notion that you want to offer compensation to buyer agents. I don't know if I necessarily need to offer a full 6%, but it also depends on the size of the transaction and what it is I'm offering. If I have like a $10 million listing or an $11 million listing, and that number may be slightly ambitious, but we need to spend some time on this, and the realtors really need to spend some effort and money to, hold on to this listing, get the right marketing out there, that could absolutely have a value of 6% over time.
So, but I think it's not going to truly remain blind. It's going to remain blind in the computer, but we're going to have to call ahead. You need
Right.
to know, are
Right.
you being paid? Who's paying you? And how much are you being paid? So my, sort of rebuttal to that would be, it's not really blind anyway, right? So why disincentivize a buyer's agent to show and sell your home? Because it's kind of like, you're setting up let's just say you had an out-of-town buyer coming. Those days that
Right.
are so fun, and you've got someone coming from California and they've picked 8 houses, and you've got to schedule all 8 houses, and you're getting it all laid out. I mean, I think if that were coming up and we're in this new world, you're going to have to schedule all 8. You're going to have to call all 8 and say, who's paying? How much am I getting paid? I think it's just going to be another step in the process. I think you're not showing property without knowing that. So I don't think it's blind. It's blind in the computer, but it's not blind in the way we're going to be operating. And I think as agents, we need to hold firm on having some sort of, dialogue or ritual in which how we're going to share that information. And not to mention, I mean, now if you have like a one-time showing on a listing, that is all laid out ahead of time anyway, and perhaps even the other party needs to be signing that. So are we going to have like some sort of paper document that's going back and forth that says, "Hey Rob, I'm willing to pay, if you're showing my listing, I'm willing to pay, the seller's willing to pay you X." Like there's going to be I think there's going to be something in there.
Right. Well, I don't know. I would have to ask an attorney who's really reviewed the whole settlement and what the plan is. But right away when you said that, what I'm thinking is like we do all of our showing scheduling through showing time mostly. Sometimes it's by appointment. You have to call someone individually, but mostly it's by showing time. So you're setting up your little route and how you're going to do this tour. as soon as you hit the button to schedule showings, I mean, an email could come to you directly from the listing agent with their disclosure document of like, here's our compensation offer. It's not necessarily like they're setting up the app to do that, you know, which is I think something that the settlement will not allow. But if it's like I'm hitting the button to schedule Rob's showing at the Apolline, and then Rob sends me an email, or someone on the team sends me an email like this has a 2.5% or what 2%, because I know you're gonna do it really low now. I'm hearing that. I'm just kidding. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like just something
I think
like
it
so
needs
it's
to be
easy.
documented.
Yeah,
That's the issue, because think back. We all know a team in town with another firm that they notoriously won't show properties unless it's a 3% commission. So they would send out a notice ahead of time saying like, I'll show your property, but you need to tell the seller that the buyer's agent compensation is going to be X. We could see that too.
Right.
We could see a demand being made ahead of time. Like, I'm not even going to show it unless you're offering X.
Right.
We hold some power too. And I think the hard part is now that agents are testing out 0 and 2%, like they're devaluing our industry, like you were saying, so I think we have to put some sort of steps in place to hold on to our integrity.
Right. Well, I think that's going to happen on, brokerage by brokerage and on an individual basis. And there was an article in the Washington Post recently, and it's like this is not groundbreaking information, but it's just talking about there will be less realtors in the business based on, market conditions alone will sort of add to that, right? The market conditions have been kind of tough. So they show a graph here. Again, this is from the Washington Post. The article was May 28th. Headline is, real estate agents are fleeing the field. Is that good for home buyers? And so then there's a graph here that talks about the number of full-time real estate brokers has declined from its pandemic era peak. But the graph goes back to 2000, and it shows like just over 300,000 licensed realtors. It peaks at over 500,000 in about 2006. Like free money was being thrown around. It declines after that, and then rises back up during the pandemic when, free money was being thrown around.
What were the levels in the pandemic?
Pandemic looks like it was in like the 550, 575 range, and now we're down to 440, according to the statistics.
So seeing a trend.
But even the pandemic, though, there was articles out there in the pandemic where there were more homes for sale, or there were more agents than there were homes for sale. So even during the pandemic, it was tough. Veteran agents saw a windfall of money, yes, but newer agents jumping in, they were scrambling around to get those homes on the market because they had no business, and it was difficult. Like the story I shared earlier, during the height of the pandemic, we were showing 10 off-market properties to one of our clients. Like there was just nothing on the open market to show our clients.
Right. All right. Well,
that's an interesting strategy, though.
Yeah.
Your comment on, as soon as you get something through Showtime, here's your one-time showing agreement with the commission, because
something like
even
that.
if a seller told us it's 3% and we tell the buyer agent it's 3%, by the time he gets to closing, and it's like, well, I didn't tell you that. So who's on the hook
there's no
there?
directive, right?
Right.
So the directive always was that you could print out that one sheet from when you were showing the property, and it's an offer of compensation, and you had something to fall back on. Now we don't have a paper trail. So I think something's going to have to come into play, whether it's some sort of, I think that's not a bad idea, but isn't showing time in cahoots with like the MLS? So like, I don't know if they necessarily.
Like I said, I don't think it's something that could be like automatically sent through any like electronic means aside from like an email or something like that, based on what I've read. Like we can't set up some side app somewhere that's the compensation app. That's
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's just do it. Yeah, and let's all lose our licenses. All right.
And keep in mind, we all know that this is definitely an agent-driven town, right? So anytime we go out, and I always tell my clients that too, because I always say it's very important to find out who you're working with, right? Because one agent is completely different than another, and they know if there's going to be multiple offers. We probably know the agent that we're bidding with or against, et cetera. Yeah. And when I'm not just saying any TTR agent, but if a Robin, Brent, or Lauren, or Max, we make a phone call, they return our call immediately, or they take it, right? Unbeknownst to other people that have been in the business maybe not as long as we have, they might not be calling them back. And then you'll hear people will say, oh, they never call me, et cetera. Well, automatically when I'm going to go show a property, I don't even call anymore. I don't do the email. I text immediate, right? And I'll be like, hey, Lauren, what's the deal with this? I want to make sure I can get in. There's no central lock drama. There's no combo issue, and I want to make sure I'm getting paid. What, boom.
I think that's what's going to happen.
And that's what's going to happen. Like if I'm going to show yours in Bethesda, I'm going to say, what's the deal here? Is it a 1, 2, 2.5? I just want to know. And you'll text me right back and go, yeah. So that way I don't have to make the call. I don't have to find it. I'm going to know right from the listing agent.
One more point on this, and I know that we don't typically do rentals, but think about the rental market. Like how many agents are going to go and call someone for a rental? Like, am I getting paid on the rental side? It's like
Zero.
I think the rental market's going to dry up.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And it's good that you mentioned that because I went to a Memorial Day party and there were like 125 people. And one of the guys knew me and he knows that he uses another brand, another firm. And he was telling his buddies, hey, but he's a realtor with Sotheby's, blah, blah, blah. And immediately one of the kahunas leans over and he goes, what are you guys going to do? Are you going to be out of business soon? Like that, kind of like tried to be, and he tried to he was drunk and he tried to make a big thing. And I go,
what a guy.
What do you mean by that? I go, we own all of the tri-state area. TTR is number 1. So he looked at me and he goes, well, what about the buy side to bring that up? And I right then had housewives, everyone looking at me. It was like, here's your moment to pivot.
The audience.
An audience to pivot or fail. What came right out? And I felt I was on the offensive because they were all looking at me. And I turned to him, I go, what do you mean what's on the buy side? I go, if you're not going to pay me, is your home going to be shown? No. And people clapped. Like, in other words, it was very easy. All that.
We needed a video.
In
Oh my
1
gosh.
minute.
I love that.
And
If you're not going to pay me,
is it going to be shown? And I leaned over to him. I go, is it going to be shown, your home? No.
Wow.
Then you've got his wife, everyone in the back, and going, yeah, he's not going to work for free.
yeah.
One last story here from our side. We sent a referral down to Florida, and it was a $5 million transaction. The
Purchase or sale?
we were on the listing side. The buyer came through with another agent. The buyer paid their agent 2.5% commission on a $5 million transaction. Our side got 2%, but again, it's up and down the East Coast. It's from our coast to the West Coast.
So start over again. You had a client listing.
We had a client listing. We sent a referral down to Florida. We were on the list side.
Okay.
All right. So you had referred a listing agent to sell a client's house.
$5 million.
Okay.
The listing side, our side, got 2%.
And did not get a buyer agent commission?
The buyer agent paid their own buyer.
The buyer
paid
paid
their
But
own
what did
buyer
the
agent.
listing agreement say?
It was for the 2% for the listing side.
And they were not offering a buyer
They were
agent?
not offering a buyer, and it closed. $5 million.
Already.
It closed.
Already.
Wow.
Was this
That was this.
around
Where
the
was
corner
this?
from my mom?
Yep.
Oh, in Delray. Okay.
So again, it's up and down the East Coast, from East Coast to West Coast. It's going to be transformative.
Wow.
So we just have to be right.
Yeah.
As Lauren mentioned at the beginning of the hour, we just have to keep doing what we're doing. People are going to pay for the services. If you don't want services, you're going to get what you pay for, or lack thereof.
Right. Right. I'm still trolling the comment sections on these articles. Like
Comments
the
are
one on the post.
great. I love
It's
them.
just I literally start. I will start off by writing a comment before I've even read any. I just write cue the comments of how realtors are useless, etc. It's like unbelievable. People are like, well, my uncle sold his house in England 3 years ago, and it's just like, okay, good for your uncle. All right, sorry. Okay, what about the rest of the market? What about the reality of we are actually out here working and trying to make dollars, and we are earning commissions. Hello, but the market has been, this year started off actually okay. Like for me, I'm coming from my perspective. The year started off pretty good. We had a lot of stuff on the books quickly, and good listings coming in. Things trailed off a little bit for us, early spring. And now things are starting to happen again. But we've had a lot of consumer sentiment. I think when I think about consumer sentiment, it's really off the top of my head. I'm trying to read people as I'm meeting them, and when I'm talking to buyers, and even when I'm talking to sellers, and what their vibe is, the words that are coming out of their mouth. Consumer sentiment is very, to me, iffy right now in the world that I'm working in. And as we said at the top of the show, Lauren, your primary market where you focus a lot of your business is in suburban Bethesda, just outside of Washington D.C. Lots of detached homes, a very popular school system, a little different from the in-town stuff. Why do you think the consumer sentiment is still so strong in Bethesda right now?
I don't know. We've had a gangbusters year so far, but I feel like the brakes just hit so hard. Like, I don't have a lot of calls about listings coming on the market. The buyers that I'm left with are extremely picky. And when I say that, I think it's maybe coupled with nerves, because you have to wonder why. You've seen 10 things and they're all pretty great. Like, what's holding you back? So I think we came out swinging, came out super strong. I don't know. I think living in Bethesda Chevy Chase is a wonderful place to be. It's, it does have great schools. Things are relatively close. If your kids are involved in activities, things are, at your fingertips. I think it's a pretty easy lifestyle. I will say, I know all of you work in DC primarily. I mean, what we're hearing is the crime is a real issue and people have real concerns about raising young families in the city. Sometimes also what I'm seeing is we've had a couple instances where parents are moving to town, and let's say they're in their 60s. They don't necessarily want to live in the city. They actually want to live in Bethesda or Chevy Chase, which I also think is a little bit different. I mean, they're moving here from California or they're moving here from Florida, and they still want to live in the suburbs of DC, maybe access to their grandkids or access to green space. I don't know, and I don't know if it's a real issue downtown, which I think it is, or if it's a PR thing that has spread, but we have a pretty desirable market and we don't have a ton of inventory. So it's
Right.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty low inventory. I've been tracking Bethesda Chevy Chase market for about a year now, and just like on a daily basis, and it's like a couple listings here and there sold immediately. Anything under $1.5 million is just snapped up very easily, and and Bethesda's large. I mean, that includes most of Bethesda outside the Beltway too.
Yeah. And even when I think something might be slightly mispriced, once someone's making an adjustment, I thought, a week or two ago, I thought we had a slam dunk for my buyer. I'm like, let's do this. Like, this is great. This house is great. There were 3-4 offers, so you're never ahead of it. You're not winning. I don't think there's a lot of great deals to be had. I don't think our market's going to go backwards or backslide. I just think that there's demand because there's so little offered.
It's a tough market right now in Bethesda, I think, because we've had some buyers up there as well. It's a great time if you're a seller. Also, to piggyback off of that, it's like work from home. Before the pandemic, attorneys, whoever, are going into the office 5 days a week. Now they're going in 1 or 2 days a week, so they can be in Bethesda, they can be in Northern Virginia or what have you.
I hear that more. Yeah. I hear that more. If I'm commuting 2 days a week, no big deal. I'll suffer through, a little bit of traffic to live in a neighborhood or a house that I really want to be in. So it's happening. Yeah. And I will say, this is no knock on Brent's current listing. In fact, it's incredible, but he put a listing on in Edgemoor where we do a lot of business and where I grew up. And, it to me was not the prettiest home, and it had struggled. I know, compliments everywhere.
We asked you to co-list with us, and you're like, no, thank you. Right.
No, thank you. I'll pass. What
Yikes.
a dumb move by me.
I know, really.
Anyway, he it had struggled to sell, and it had been on and off. And you know what? I'll be damned if he didn't get it right, get it presented, and sell.
Because he's amazing.
He's amazing.
The Midas touch.
Yes, no. I mean, I think sorry, Brent, it goes back to the fact that there's nothing for sale in that location. And if it's properly presented to the market, I think it had been listed by our friends at Redfin before, and there were some other avenues they had tried. But I think if it's properly presented to the marketplace in a good location, your house is going to sell.
Right.
But there's not a lot of movement because where are people going?
I know, right?
If they're staying within our market.
Yeah, this was downtown Bethesda. Multiple offers coming right out of the spring market. Nothing on the market. I think we were probably the lowest in the neighborhood.
Could not sell before that.
I was monitoring that. I did not see the house in
person.
Was
wild.
I was just like, why is it still
So, where were they going? That's
They are going to travel the world.
Yeah.
the sellers, and the
Yeah.
buyers are moving in from Potomac.
Right.
Okay.
So it's unique. That's the other thing that we haven't really talked about is like what's motivating people to sell their house right now. Like
Sure.
if you didn't have to or you don't have a plan, I think it's a pretty specific reason. It's not like the pandemic when people were moving as a recreational activity, just for the hell of it. Now I think it's really purpose driven.
Well, and you mentioned earlier the crime, and we won't go too much into the crime stats, but the buyer that bought our house, again, they're coming from Potomac. Before the pandemic, that buyer's probably going to Georgetown. They're going to Logan. They're going to Shaw. But now they're like, let me put on the brakes and stay north of Western Avenue.
Yeah, I think the reality of also the growing population of the young family type dynamic, and the reality of school systems and what it really costs to send your kid to private school versus public school, and the politics of the DC public school system, which I've become very familiar with. It makes places like Montgomery County and Fairfax County and Arlington County very appealing, very appealing. And
Especially if you have several kids.
Yeah.
It's a big factor.
absolutely.
Rob, what do you think?
Yeah.
So it's funny to touch on the Edgemore home, because I had followed the Edgemore home too before I even knew that Brent had got it. I had watched it before, and I'm thinking, wow, it has gone through many firms. I think maybe Redfin had brought it on a couple times. So when Brent goes, "Do you want to do the open house?" I have to admit, I'm thinking, why for this dead listing? So I was a lot like Lauren,
Wow, we got
because
two
I'm
there.
thinking, yeah. Believe it or not, I went there and I had a blast. I had probably 100 people through there. I had all the doors open. They have 1,000 doors in that home. People were coming in and out. We had a great time. The neighborhood was good. Everyone really, really complimented the home. So I remember calling him going, "You're going to get this under contract. You're probably going to get 2 or 3 offers." I think by that
Shocked.
Monday or Tuesday, he had it under contract. But it was
Crazy.
the most enjoyable open was right there.
Because
And
it's the best neighborhood in the world.
it is.
Yeah.
It was great.
People are cool.
And the home had a lot of artwork. It had people were arguing about wanting the statue out front in the yard, and the neighborhood people that live there go, "We just wanted to come in and look at the house." I'm like, "Come on in." But and the funny part about Bethesda, I was thinking, we have a buyer right now that's it was up to $2 million. Now we're up to 2.4. We have written 5 offers over 8 months. We even had the pleasure of writing on one of Lauren's.
Which one was
different
that?
client.
Which one?
It was one that you had on the corner there. Had been on for a while.
Oh, yes.
And then a day later, we got another offer. Well, I moved that client to another one. But this client we've been working with, wonderful people. We have written 4 or 5. We've lost on all of them. The last one we thought we were in good. And it was with my good friend who I love, Kira Epstein. She had the she called me up and said, "Hey, I've got a great house for you." We went, I think, 280,000 over, thinking we got it. We've done everything Kira said. Boom, 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 boom. She calls me back. She goes, "Nope, you weren't even close." She goes, "It was like 430,000 over." I'm like, okay, we lost fair. But our buyer now has went into buyer fatigue mode.
Yeah.
She has done a complete meltdown. And, she's like, "I need about a month to recover."
Ooh.
I was like, all right. So she's going to take 30 days off, and we're going to look for other property. But, now we're calling all the agents and finding out who has private exclusive so we can.
I think the buyer fatigue is real right now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of fatigued by writing 4 or 5 offers for someone and
doubt.
getting so excited for them and then having it drop off.
Yeah.
But I feel like part of the reason we had a great front end to the market is the buyers that we had could compete in those situations. They were the unicorn. They could close in 10 days. They could pay cash. They were willing to do all these things. And I find the ones that I have left over are the ones who need a 30-day break, who need, and maybe they will get something over the summer when the market isn't as intense. But what buyers have had to do in this market to get a house in a competitive situation, I think is more extreme than it has been. And if you're lucky enough to have those kinds of buyers as clients, you're going to have success. If you have normal buyers, which are very well qualified, normal's not winning.
Right.
I have a buyer fatigue story, but I wanted to go back to the Midas touch aspect of this Edgemore listing. So seriously, I
If
think
you have a house in Edgemore, call me.
And if it's a dog, you can call us.
okay, hold on. I want to give some value to our listeners who are wondering, like, what the hell did he do to this house?
Yes,
So
what did
tell
you
us
do?
tell us about the house. What was challenging for it? it was listed before you. Was listed with another broker before you, right?
It was listed with Redfin before us. I think it was 1 or 2 years before us.
Okay.
And from my understanding, they did not want to have an open house, and the Redfin agent would just let the agents go through with their buyers. I'm like, we're not going to do that. So even though I'm in Capitol Hill, I did make the trek up for, I think we probably had 13 showings over the course of 4 or 5 days. As Rob mentioned, we had 2 open houses on a Saturday and a Sunday. They were packed. As a result, again, we came on the market right at the beginning of the spring season.
So what was the month?
I think we came on in April.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like spring being like late January, early February.
Me too, yeah.
But some people think spring is April, which this one came on in April. And photograph, videos, push it out to the masses. Again, if you're dealing with a Sotheby's agent, whether it's us or anybody at this table or anybody in our firm, it's a step above a Redfin agent.
Well, definitely.
Sure.
So the presentation and the quality of the presentation.
Absolutely.
I mean, the house had some limiting factors. It's the first house into the neighborhood off of a busier street, off of Arlington Road, and it sides to the library parking lot. So there are things about it that already have some, limiting factors in terms of an audience. But the fact that he was able to get it priced correctly, obviously, because he got multiple offers, beautiful presentation, and timing.
Yeah.
And quality of that representation, showing up for the showings, having someone really great at an open house, just presenting it to the market. I mean, I'm speaking for him.
And I think
they did a great job.
Yeah.
As Lauren mentioned earlier, I mean, it's her marketplace right now, too. I mean, you're catching lightning in a bottle in the sense that, again, I mentioned we did get a couple of offers. They were all the same demographic. Before the pandemic, this demographic, it's empty nesters, kids are in college.
Which I find so interesting.
They were
so
going
no
to
families.
Georgetown or Logan
Yeah.
Circle. They were not going to buy in. Well, I mean, like Lauren knows better than I do, but that
Mhm.
buyer demographic would be in Logan Circle, DuPont, Georgetown, somewhere besides Edgemore. Edgemore's an amazing neighborhood, but
Yeah.
it just speaks to some of the stuff we talked about earlier with crime and homelessness and rats and all the stuff we love about DC.
No doubt. So these buyers that I was working with, I've been working with them for a long time. They had fought and lost many multiple offer situations. This was last year, 23, and then they kind of just fatigued out, disappeared on me, and I was like, I'll hear from them when I hear from them. I have no idea what's going on. So then they came back around this year, and they're like, we're back in the market. We went out doing some open houses, and we want to get back into this. I'm like, cool. So
You're like, great, it's even harder this year.
yeah. And then they were focused on they were mostly focused on Petworth kind of location for a while, 16th Street Heights. Now they wanted Tacoma Park, Maryland. I was like, oh great, from the frying pan into the fire. A very tough market.
Not a lot of turnover.
There's not a lot of turnover. There's
No.
barely anything there.
No, that folk stays.
And so that's not look, I'm not saying that's far away from me, but it's crossing the whole city from Georgetown to Tacoma Park is not a wonderful trip. You got to cross the center of town and whatever. It's
Well, what's your drive time? I'm just curious.
Could be up to 40 minutes
From
to Tacoma, from
Georgetown
Georgetown,
to-
Davidsonville? There you go.
easily.
Is that why you called to refer them to us? Is
Yeah,
that what
that's
happened?
right.
Oh, okay.
No. So I made a couple of visits up to Tacoma. There were some pre-inspections,
you were in this.
2 or 3. Yeah. I mean, I have my assistant Amir also help me on a couple of the appointments, but no, there were some that was legit attempts. I think we lost 3. But yeah, we've done
Inspection,
multiple pre-inspections for this couple,
Can I ask price range?
up to 1.2.
Okay.
1.2,
Popular
1.3.
price range,
Yeah. And a lot of stuff in Tacoma Park comes up under $1 million. You're
It
that's
does.
under $1 million,
I
and
know.
it seems like a pretty good deal.
I know.
And then they have 25 offers. So we got crushed a couple times, and then I found an off-market opportunity for them. There were some inspection issues that came up with the house. Nothing that couldn't have been overcome. The buyers exited that deal. I was like, okay.
No way.
Oh yeah.
Why?
Oh, yeah.
What do you really think the issue was?
There was vermiculite asbestos insulation in the house,
Oh.
but I mean, I'm not saying everyone has a different comfort level with environmental type stuff. But I will say I've dealt with asbestos cleanup before with the appropriate contractors. It's not as expensive as people think, and that's how they do it. They clean it up, they package it up, they get
so
it out,
where
and they
was
test it.
insulation in the attic that was
Yeah,
the
it
issue?
started in the attic, but
Yeah.
it over time it worked its way down.
Oh.
In you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like
I don't
it's like a
think
dust.
I don't think I would love it.
Yeah, so I've definitely had some different opinions on that.
Yeah.
Some people said yeah, no, I would just leave that alone because they feel like they would have to tear literally everything apart with that house. So then that deal exited. So I was like, okay, I can see that both ways. Then we came very close to finalizing a deal on a house that wasn't multiple offers, and they all of a sudden, like, we were literally $5,000 apart. The other broker and I were going to split the $5,000. I know this sounds like a really small amount of money, in terms of like the seller and the buyer and the agent. So I was like, let's just finish this.
Yeah.
And they got just cold feet. Like, we had like one initial to go for a ratified contract, and then they were just like, we're just taking a break. And I was like,
We came so far.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. It was just
Well,
the other
that's-
agent and I were like bewildered, but I don't know what people go through.
So,
you
but
know?
I think that's kind of what I was starting with was buyers seem super picky right now. But is it coupled with nerves? Because like if you're so close and it's like you and I know that it's as good as it's going to get. Like this house is fantastic. This is a great price for it. But I do think the fatigue and we can't, the elephant in the room also is the interest rate. Like
Interest rates,
the
right? Yeah.
cost to actually live there on a monthly basis is expensive.
Yes.
So it's making them picky.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Well-
think that's the cherry on the top. And I'm glad you brought that up because I think buyers are picky because of the rate being, depending on what time of the year you're buying, but from 6 to 8%. They're like, get to that point and the rates go up to 0.5% that week. And it's
Even
like,
if there
I'm
was a
done.
shift that week.
Right.
You know?
The commitment level to a payment at like for a house like this, and I don't know what their full financial scope is, but again, that's a personal thing.
Mhm.
Like, but when you get that estimate and you see that your $1.2 million house with 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths is going to cost you $8,000 a month,
It's a lot of money.
that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And
Well,
Rob's
s-
never had a payment that high in his life.
Never.
That's-
Never
It's car
will.
payment.
Yeah, that's
So-
true.
I was at a closing yesterday, and it was a first-time home buyer, and their payment was going to be like $5,600 a month.
Mhm.
And just out of they rent a townhouse in Arlington, and they're moving to a house in Bethesda. And I said to them, just out of curiosity, like it's like a nice townhouse. I said, "What's your rent?" Because I'm looking at them. They're looking at the numbers. How the lady was so detailed about the PITI. So going through the taxes and insurance and how the escrow account builds up. And I could see their eyes, just getting bigger and bigger. And then dun, 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 here's our number, which of course they had heard before. And so I turned to look at her and I said, "What's your rent right now?" Because I could tell they were nervous, and I obviously I knew that it's a big commitment. And she said $3,200. So you look at that. I think that's sort of a good delta to look at, which is young couple just got married, both have good jobs, living, I'm sure, relatively comfortable in that $3,200. But in order to catapult into the market and buy a house in a competitive market, I think there were 8 offers on the house that they got under contract on. They're now at $5,600 a month. I mean, it's a jump.
Yeah.
It's not insurmountable, but that's the reality is that people really have to stretch themselves.
Yes.
It's a personal decision that people have to make, and that's part of the reason interest rates are at where they are right now is to try to like tamp down people's like over exuberance to throw way too much money at things. But again, in our market with this low inventory and people wanting to get settled in, get their lives set up, maybe they're moving from another house, maybe they're moving from another location, and then turn that onto the rental market. They have a nice rental situation where they're paying $3,200 a month. That isn't easy to come by either.
Right. Right.
Depending on what the product is.
Right.
You look for like a rental single family house in Northwest DC right now, there's like 5 things and they're all gross. So,
Right.
I mean,
It's great to be a landlord right now too because these people before the pandemic are in 2% and 3% interest rates, and then we're seeing that across the board. It's like if they don't get their number, and we recommend it, it's like just pivot and rent for a couple of years. I mean, the market will bounce back in downtown DC, Navy Yard, Capitol Hill, Brookland, Shaw, Eckington. It's like if you don't get your number, you will get the number to cover the mortgage on the rent. 3 years, you're not moving back here. We'll put it on the market and maybe get 10% more than what we're asking now.
It's not a bad idea.
I have another story. So speaking of interest rates, so and Navy Yard. Navy Yard is a market that has kind of like ebbed a little bit, unless it's like the Velocity where everything seems to still be like that's a good value building. Right. But like the Bower, Avidian, those newest of new buildings, it's kind of like it's tough to sell anything. I've had this listing in there for 4 or 5 months. I don't even know.
Which building do you have?
Bauer.
Yeah.
You're doing owner financing.
Yes. So the seller,
really?
the seller paid cash for it like a year ago, and he decided he didn't need this unit. He knew he was definitely going to be selling it for less than he paid for it, and less than it originally sold for. I mean, this is like the market is slid away
New
there.
Construction.
Yeah.
Typical.
And so we had it listed for like the lowest price per square foot I think ever in the building's history, and still like crickets, nothing. And so he's like, I'll offer seller financing at 5%. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
So I put that out there. Nobody reached out.
Wow.
0 people reached out. This has been offered this way for months. I'm like, why wouldn't you at least like inquire about that?
Yeah.
Like, is this
Yeah.
true? I can
Yeah.
buy this at the lowest dollar per square foot ever in this building's
And
history.
get a rate 3% or 2% under market.
In a building with a 24-hour front desk, garage parking, walk downstairs to amenities. No one. And so I brought it to a buyer who I'd sold an investment unit to a couple years ago, and I said, you realize like my seller, he lives next door in the rental building next door. He owns another investment unit in Capitol Hill. I said, you realize my seller's offering 5% commission or 5% interest rate on this? He's like, really? I mean, we're under contract. Like, it's just like
So will he move into that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but,
good.
But it's just like,
Yeah.
it like clicked immediately. But I just don't understand how nobody else saw this. Like no other agent brought it to their buyer, or if buyers are really that skittish about that market right now, they're like, I'm not interested in Navy Yard right now. Because he's buying at a low point in the market for that micro location, and he just bought it. He's buying at an interest rate. I mean, that's like got to be a win-win.
Was that around 800,000? I think I saw that.
It's the contract price is just under 850.
Yeah. Well, that building has high condo fees too. Like I'm shocked at
It's $1,100 a month condo.
like that buyer. Like why would he not buy like our unit at 9254 Street? It's a fee simple home for $1 million with a HOA fee of 92. But we don't have
Is that Capital Quarter?
Capital Quarter, but we don't have a owner financing.
Okay.
So I think the only reason that guy jumped on that was because of the 5% owner financing, and then you're also not tied into like having it.
He's
on your
very
credit and
payment
all
driven,
that.
this
Right.
gentleman, and so when he saw the payment breakdown, and it made complete sense to him. He's sharp.
Did you
So-
have it in MLS where you toggle the field of owner financing?
Yeah.
But nobody, I mean,
I don't think we as
no,
buyer agents look at that.
no, you got to have it in the comments.
It was in the comments
Is it?
too.
Yeah.
Like big bold letters.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
We sort of off topic, but I know that it's been tougher to sell condos downtown in this market. So we had a unit at Union Row in the 500s. I'd been in the fall there were several units in the 500s for sale, 1 bedrooms. Okay. I knew that my guy was going to sell. I said, let's hang on. Let's let the fall market absorb that inventory, and we'll come on in, January, February, and we'll be the only one. Well, comes January, February, he calls. He's like, all right, I'm ready to go. I'm like, none of that inventory has been absorbed. And he's like, I just got to go. We got to go on the market.
Yeah.
So we went on the market, and I don't know why. We are the one that's under contract. Thank God. We did lower our price. I think we are probably the best price per square foot. But there's some pluses and minuses to our unit. Long story short, now we're coming up close to closing, and the lender doesn't think that they can get financing on the building because there's a big project on the building for the windows. And our seller has already prepaid the assessment. Like he's like, my job is done. I have, but basically the building has been flagged by
Risk.
Yeah. And so we don't know if that's actually going to go to close. I'm like, it's already hard enough to sell these. Then you're the one to go under contract, and you're moving forward thinking, okay, we're done. And then now this, and it's just, we'll just have to.
To that I have to say to Rob and Brent, Lauren left Bethesda. She came downtown and found out how tough
There's
it is.
only
It
one lender allowed
is.
in that building.
No, I don't think that's true.
I think there's only like one lender.
Yeah, we've known about this for like a year and a half now. So we've had
there you go.
8 units that we're holding back because Fannie Mae flagged that building and said, no way, there's no loan.
So, but there's
being a seller in that building?
there's a ton of stuff for sale though.
I know, and those
Yeah.
people, we didn't send out a memo to them,
Right,
unfortunately, but
right.
there is one portfolio loan program in there that the board ended up talking to the lender, and they agreed to, I think it's 1.25 over the going rate. So I think one just
Oh,
closed
Lord.
with the portfolio.
Oh Lord.
So it's
well,
even higher.
Yeah,
You're
it's even
saying-
higher. Like in other words, if the current is 7, they'll do it for 8.25.
Oh my gosh.
That way they don't
What-
care about Fannie Mae. Yeah.
Okay, well, the only other thing to say to that is you also can't rent the unit.
Correct.
Because
Yeah.
you're past the cap. So it's unfair to the seller,
It is.
in my opinion.
Oh,
They
that's
almost need
really
but they're
tough.
supposed to start the window project in 3 weeks.
Right. They've had all the money for a long time.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you're going to continue to rent, you have to apply for a hardship because of the situation that not necessarily the board, but the developer or whatever the case may be has put them in.
Why are they in
Yeah.
a window issue so like young in their infancy? But okay, that's another story.
Yeah.
I've got a listing coming up at River Park, which is a cooperative in Southwest.
Oh my God, why?
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not going over there.
Yeah.
Oh my God, why?
I
It's
I am going over
145,000.
there.
No, that's like
Yeah.
Brent coming to Edgemore. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
right.
Southwest. I know how to get to Southwest. You just
We got a team member.
Main
for you
Avenue.
That'll do that. Just
Yeah,
promise us.
exactly.
Yeah, we got a team
Um,
member.
it's one of the River Park is a huge campus.
Yeah.
There's a high rise and a bunch of townhouses. It's one of the townhouses which were very desirable at one point a few years ago, and they were selling like high 6s. I think one sold in the 7s.
Mhm.
That building's had a massive assessment on it.
Yeah.
Massive,
And it assesses the townhouse part too.
all of it.
Mhm.
It's
Aren't
all
the
included.
fees like $2,800 a month?
Yes,
or
right now they're like everything's rolled into the fee. They
Yeah.
didn't. Then they didn't create like a separate way to this point of like allowing the owners to just pay their assessment to try to keep their fee down. So that is stalling out all the listings there
Right.
too.
Oh,
That's
they
'cause
won't.
it's a
They
co-op, right?
they'll just raise
that's
the
why.
monthlies. Oh,
That's what they rolled it into the monthlies,
oof.
and then
Yeah.
it's just
That might
they're
be
just things
a
just
no.
sitting on the market. I know
That might be a no for you.
it can't be.
As a team here, we've decided it's a no.
I don't think it can be a no. I sold these folks another house, and I kind of
Oh,
have to
okay.
keep proceeding.
You
So-
keep proceeding.
Yeah,
I love
continue.
that's a good way
It's
to
like the
put it.
lesson we learned earlier in this podcast. Stay in your niche. It's like I should not go to Edgemore. Lauren should not go to U
Union
Street.
Row.
You
Yeah,
shouldn't go
yeah.
to Southwest. Rob's up in Darnesville.
Well, if I don't go to Southwest,
Yeah,
who will?
he combined the two. You're
Right.
now in Darnesville.
I love
Darnesville, I love it.
Maybe that'll be a new name for the city. Yeah.
Exactly. It's true. Stay in your lane.
And it's funny when you mentioned Darnesville. I thought of our client, and here we took our client out of a condo that he had been in for 10 years. We did,
Where's the downtown?
City Vista,
Uh-huh.
which, a little shout out to Rob and Brent. It is the highest sale price per square foot in the building. So we are on record now. Great job, Brent.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then we moved him to Darnestown. In the whole, I guess, going back and forth with buying it and all that, he had a lot of appreciation in City Vista, which we told him to buy 10 years ago, and there were 13 offers at that time.
Wow.
And I go, trust
Whoa.
me, it's a penthouse. So
Whoa.
it's got a big terrace. He trusted me. He made a lot of money on it. He was putting a huge down payment on it. And he calls me up and he goes, hey, look, I'm really, because it made me think about your lady talking about how much he was paying $3,200 for rent.
Right.
He goes, I was only at 2.5 was my, number, and now I'm at 7, and I'm putting $600,000 down. And I go, yeah, but you're buying a home, and we had to do a
Right.
lot of counseling with him to hold his hand. But I go, wow, but you had no problem paying a $900 a month condo fee
Right.
that you couldn't write off. Let's bring that up.
Yeah.
Right.
And he was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, you're right. Thank you for counseling me.
Right.
Got him back to normal, but
Right.
concentrated that much on the rate.
What was the sales price of that unit at City Vista?
In the beginning,
No, like
now it's
just
820
820.
it's a
Is that the
one-bedroom.
K Street side or the L Street side?
K Street. That's
Okay.
where you need to be. L Street is
L
a
Street.
no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
L Street side.
We also
Yeah.
set a record
Yeah.
for a unit we just sold in New York Avenue, Yale Lofts. So I mean, there is demand out there for something that is unique
Yeah.
and special. A buyer will come through and pay market value or then some on something that's special.
Right.
Sure.
That building, Yale Lofts, has never, shout out to Trent Heminger when he sold it years ago, but that building has never reached in the 8s, always in the 7s. We just broke another 825 number.
Wow.
So yeah, and we did a huge mailer with a gift to all the owners.
Wow.
Congratulations. Your
I think
building
that's
is now
great.
hitting to the 8s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice to see.
Yeah.
I mean,
Courtesy of the Edgemore specialists.
exactly.
No, I think that's really actually helpful to know that those buildings in that particular location, Yale and City Vista, are doing
Who would've
okay.
thought?
No, I mean, not in this market.
And the best part is when you think it's right across from good old City Center, which is going backwards. So here's an example
That's
of
a
where
tough one.
two
Center's
buildings that actually look at City Center and are now making a really good profit for their owners.
Yep.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with people don't have to go downtown to work 5 days a week. So city center is getting crushed. There was an article in I think it was Washingtonian, Washington, some NBA site that has Capital One Arena, one of the top 10 dangerous arenas in the country.
Oh, lovely.
So like you factor that in with people aren't coming into work. It's like,
Well, but at least we're
Why live at
keeping
City
it
Center?
now.
Right.
Yeah. Although I heard that Gallery Place, this is another headline I saw in the Business Journal, was being sold for $29 million or something, some crazy low number.
I think it goes back to like which market you're talking about, right? Like wrapping up here, Rob and I do a lot of stuff. I always say Cleveland Park to Capitol Hill, all points in between. But we just got a $100,000 price reduction on a house in Truxton Circle. And I went deep into the numbers and I showed them, under 1.5 in Truxton Circle, not all of 20001, just Truxton Circle. There's a 6-month supply of inventory for fee simple homes.
Whoa.
And they're like, wow, that's
That's
eye-opening.
got to be, that's got to be a particular market.
Yeah, so we started at $1 million, went to $950, went to $899. Now we're at $799,
Wow.
$795.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're 20% off from where we were. But
Is the traffic up at all?
we just did this last night, so we've
Okay.
got 2 showings today, 2
Okay.
showings off the bat.
Oh,
But
wow.
again, it depends on what market. If you're up in Lawrence market right now, I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
Why don't you sell your people who thought they wanted to be in Tacoma this place?
Not happening.
Okay. Just thought I'd try to matchmake.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Wow. The last half hour, really just blazed by. I'm not even kidding. I thought for sure we had another 10 minutes, but we don't. So we are going to wrap it up, and Brent's going to do some rapid fire questions.
Rapid fire. Are all 3 of you guys going to jump in here? This is
I
summertime.
can,
rapid fire.
these are our,
Sure.
esteemed guests, so they really.
First question here: hamburger or hot dog?
Hamburger.
Hot dog.
Burger.
Charcoal or gas?
Charcoal.
Charcoal.
I'm going to go gas because it's just easier. I don't want to clean up the charcoal. Okay.
Or it takes
the
45
record-
minutes to get it warmed up too.
For the record, I like hamburgers, but the guilty pleasure is a hot dog.
No doubt.
Mustard or ketchup?
Ketchup.
Ketchup.
If I
All day
have to,
long.
if it's really,
You're
it's
gonna
life
only
or
have
death,
one.
Yeah, it's got to be ketchup. It's got to
Mhm.
be ketchup.
Pool or ocean?
Wow.
Ocean. Is there another
Pool.
option?
I'm gonna go pool. We've had some ocean troubles recently.
I think they're soft down here.
Jellyfish.
This is
Oh,
real
okay.
soft down here. This end of the table got
Yeah.
soft.
This is downtown DC.
Right.
We're like ketchup, swimming pool.
Wow.
Gas cooking.
Yeah.
They do like charcoal. They like charcoal.
Hamburgers.
He'll, he'll switch over to.
They
gas
don't
now.
even like hot dogs.
Last one here. You're in the dead of August. It's 120 degrees here in DC. You want to go somewhere warm or cold for your August break? Beach or mountain?
Cape Cod.
Florida.
I mean, to be totally honest, we end up going to North Carolina, which is further south, and I mean, you get a little beach sort of breeze there at least, but I just prefer hot.
Good deal.
Yeah. That's
Yep.
great.
All right, y'all. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.